Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one stop knowledge and resource space for autism and much more. I'm very happy to have Rachelle Vartanian join me as my guest today. Rachelle is the founder and president of Living and Learning Enrichment Center, a nonprofit organization providing a broad range of resources and support services to individuals with disabilities and their families across 12 Southeast Michigan counties. Since 2015, the agency has partnered with more than 100 businesses and organizations to provide access to inclusive employment skill building opportunities and meaningful job placement support. Rachelle is an active member of dozens of regional business and service organizations, bringing with her a mission of empathy, education, and advocacy. Rachelle is also the parent of an adult son with autism and is committed to forging pathways to a higher quality of life for Michigan residents with autism and other disabilities. Welcome, Rachelle. And thank you
Thank
so
you for
much
having
for
me.
taking time. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me today and discuss the work you do.
Oh, I love this. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. So, to begin with, talk with me a little bit about your personal journey and the motivation in the field of special education and autism advocacy.
Okay. Well, I was a special education teacher for 20 years. And during that time, I found out my youngest son was on the autism spectrum. And back then they called it Asperger's syndrome. I think now it would be autism one. He prefers Asperger syndrome, so I use that word a lot. But I knew nothing about it. I was a special education teacher for mostly adults. When I say adults, high school age, for people that had severe behavioral issues. So I wasn't on that trajectory at all. I never even heard the word Asperger's when they diagnosed him. But what I knew was that when people get done with school, if you are in special education, you have some type of disability, that there's nothing out there. I was one of those teachers that I was very involved in my students' lives. And so I would talk to these parents years later, and their person would be living in the basement playing video games. And that's all I thought of when they diagnosed him, that this is lifelong. I'm not ignorant to this and what happens in um, this population of people. And I went into a pretty deep depression. Not that my son had autism, not that, and I've had this discussion with him. I wasn't upset that, oh my gosh, my baby is going to be different than everyone else. It wasn't that. It was just I knew how difficult, how hard his life was going to be. And what I decided to do was go back to school and get a second master's degree in autism so that I could understand everything I could about it and I could advocate for him. Um, so I did that. And then I got to the point where I thought, you know, if I don't do something drastic, his life is going to be just like every other person I'd ever worked with who is graduated from school and they're doing nothing. The other thing was I had just gone through a divorce, and sadly my family wasn't very comfortable with my son, and they were pulling away from us. And I used to never share that, but I do now because I hear the first time I shared it, someone else said, I'm going through the same thing. And there's a lot of shame in that. You love your family. But what ended up happening is I kept thinking, they're not going to be there if I die. And if something happens, this kid's going to be homeless. So I took a huge leap of faith and I quit my job. And the only thing I had was my beautiful home. My ex-husband, I had built this beautiful home, and I decided to sell it, and I moved us into a very, very humble home. And I hate even thinking about that. It was like one of the worst times of my life. But what it allowed me to do by selling my home was to open up living and learning. And again, I'm trying to move forward and create something so that when I pass away, that he's not a burden on his brother, and that he's living a meaningful life. And the problem was overwhelming. And where do you start? Because the need is so great. So what is I started with one program, and I called it Friday Night Hangout. And I wanted where these young adults could come every single Friday and create meaningful friendships. And I started that, and it grew, and I added a Saturday night hangout, and then I started adding, music classes and art classes and gamer clubs and Dungeons and Dragon clubs. And I started looking at these individuals, and I was working with teens and adults. And I kept thinking, whatever this is for me to create this independent living piece of this, I've got to help them work. So I started a job skill program, a vocational program, where I partnered with a few different businesses, and I would bring my members there, and we would practice a lot of social skills, but the job from morning till to the time you start to the time you end, and what that looked like. And it just grew, and we got to a point where we had to move to a bigger facility. And within 3 months of moving to that bigger facility, it was like the world heard about us, and people were coming from everywhere. And I had to move again to a bigger facility. And at the time, I still wasn't getting a paycheck. We were paying our bills, but just barely. And where we're at, we're in Northville. The name of my organization is Living and Learning Enrichment Center, and we're in Northville, Michigan. And Northville's a pretty expensive place. So I'm trying to find a location and a place that I can move us into. Um, Again, I didn't have a lot of money. So someone made a joke and said, well, the Don Massey Cadillac estate is for sale. And if you're from that area, you know what that is. It's this beautiful 14-acre estate, and there's a mansion on it. And Don Massey, who's a local celebrity in our area, was the last person to live there. And it was $3.5 million. So it was kind of a joke. But about a month later, I was driving down the street, and I drove past the estate, and I just thought, I'm going to call the realtor and see if he'll let me take a tour. So I got there before he did. And as I was standing on the front porch, I looked across the street, and I saw apartments. And I had drove by those apartments a million times. But at that moment, I thought, this is how we're going to do this. This will be our home base, and we will help people live there. Um, so I did what I'm doing right now. I just spoke to anyone that would listen to my story and what I'm trying to do. I went to Kiwanis clubs and Rotary clubs and any churches, anyone that would hear me. And finally, a little local magazine picked me up and did a story on me. And then I took that story and went to every news station I could. And finally, Channel 7 did a little piece on me, and someone saw it. This man was very sick, and he was in the hospital, and he told his assistant he couldn't remember my first name, but I had sold my home to create this, and I had a son with autism. And she found me. And after talking with her, I met with him, and it wasn't this instant love connection, but I kept in touch, and I kept emailing and calling and visiting him. And about a year later, he started getting healthier. And I asked him if he'd walk the property with me. And when he did, I did think to myself, okay, you got one shot here. This has got to be a perfect pitch. And I was explaining everything, every micro business I ever wanted to do. Chickens and alpacas, and we went a bee farm and a vegetable garden, and look at the apartments across the street. And we got halfway done, and he said, Rachelle, this has to happen. And he said, I'm a businessman, so I'm not going to pay for the whole thing. You have to have skin in the game, but I'm going to give you your first $500,000. And with that, what I've learned is that no one wants to be first to give money. So I went back to every single person. I said, I've got someone that believes in me. And we were able to raise the money, and we got the keys January 2020. COVID happened in March, and we got through it. And now we have 172 people that work for us. We have 3 different locations. We have 5 satellites. We're seeing about 350 people a week. And it's just been this amazing, amazing journey.
Wow, that's all I can say
Yeah,
is
I
wow,
know.
what a journey, and it was meant to be. That's all. It
I
was
agree.
it was
I
just meant to
agree.
be, and you are the catalyst and the driving force, and that's what it takes is just passion and heart and an idea that you believe in and that you are able to excuse me, to share that passion with other
Exactly.
people and draw them to
Exactly.
you.
And I tell people all
Wonderful.
the time, what I want to do. There were so many people that stepped in. When I look at that journey, every step of the way, someone was stepping in and getting me to that next part. So I want to be that for other people. If there's, as people are listening to this, feel free to email me anytime. I will talk to anyone about anything that I can do to help them. But if there's, if I can tell you exactly what I did for everything. I don't know if it will be a work that way for you, but I want to help people as much as I can.
Well, I just think it's absolutely wonderful, Rachelle. And
Thank you.
so you mentioned providing job training and employment development for people with disabilities. Would you like to add something to that? Talk to me about that just a little bit more.
Yeah, I am we do a lot of amazing things, but I would probably say that's what I'm most proud of. And I did start this first and it wouldn't have happened without me, but I have an amazing team. So that's the other thing I would say is surround yourself with amazing people. Don't let someone work for you that's not as passionate as you are. And I think that's been the success of this. The people that I work with are they're the most, I jumped in first, but I would never have got to as far as I am without the people that I work with. And I apologize, I've got a dog that's barking in the background.
No worries.
But okay, thank you. So we have now, I started this little vocational program. Now we have four parts of it. We have a piece where if you're ready just to get a job or a career, we have a department called job development. That's all they do. There's 23 people in this department and they find you jobs that you are passionate about. If you love cleaning, great, I'm going to get you a cleaning job, but I want you to love your job. So they get them, they are just so creative. And so we've placed over 200 people in paying jobs. And then if you need more support, we've got our vocational program, which that is our largest program. There's 200 people in that program, and there's a waiting list for that program of a year and a half. So the need is so great. But what they do is, when I had said, oh, I partnered with three little businesses, we've now partnered with over 100 businesses. And Monday through Friday, our job coaches take our members to these businesses and learn the skills. The goal is that they will then go into job development and get a paying a job. To be completely honest, about 90% just stay there. They're content. They love that. And there's a lot, I don't know how it is where you are, but in Michigan, it's a little bit of a situation. If you make too much money, you're going to get kicked off Social Security. And so a lot of parents are, you know what, we're fine. We don't want to mess with that. Let's just keep them in vocational. And we respect whatever that parent and that person wants. So that's fine. If you need even more support than that, we do something called foundations where you're on our campus half the day and then you're in the community the other half. And then when you're on the campus, we've got this big farm with alpacas and chickens and bunnies, and we've got bees and gardens. And so they're doing that. And we have a farmer's market. So they're selling their products as well. And then if you even need more support, one-on-one support, we've got a program called Vocations Plus, where we have a guest house and they're in there a lot, doing a lot of life skills, cooking and learning, washing clothes and learning how to clean. They're on the farm. They're doing that as well. And they're still in the community, but just shorter periods of time. So that program has really evolved.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I know you mentioned that you offer other services as well. Some of the things that you mentioned to me before we started talking, things like clinical services, support groups, housing and independent living solutions, social development. Would you like to expand on any of those?
Yes, sure. So autism doesn't end when you're 18. And so some insurance companies are getting on board and starting to pay for their person to have therapy after 18 years old. And we really focus on those individuals that, you know, maybe they're having anxiety or they can do the job, but they need a little bit of support um, to get through the day, maybe. And there's lots of different examples of that, but we offer ABA services for adults, and we also offer psychotherapy. And that's not just for that person, but a lot of times the parent needs some support too. So health insurance pays for that. And then our evening programs and weekend programs, our Friday and Saturday night hangout are still our biggest program. And now we have a program called Tuesday night hangout for people that need more support. We have parent support groups, and we have all day Saturday. We have Comic-Con and Dungeons and Dragons and gamers clubs, and we have cooking clubs and uh, parent support groups and summer camps. And then we do a lot of things that we call pop-ups. Like over the weekend, they took a group of people to um, a couple hours away to an art exhibit, and they stayed in a hotel, and they just did things that everyone else does and created lasting friendships. So we really do a lot of that.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I just love the model that you've created there. And I know you also like to underscore the benefits. You just mentioned it briefly of extracurricular activities for
Mhm.
with special needs. Can you expand on that for me? Tell me a bit about that.
Right. The extracurricular, it's really important. If having friendships and having other people to talk to is really important. I don't think people that are outside of this this world of being on the spectrum understand how important it is to have a friend. Um, I'm going to use my son as an example, so I'm not breaking HIPAA code, but he has a friend now, and it's changed his life. And so we do a lot of things where, it doesn't matter what the program is we're doing. So let's say it's an art class we're doing. We bring people in to specifically work on trying to help them make connections with other people so that they have friendships and they have someone they can text. I created a program where it started with just girls. Now there's some men in it too. And once a month, we either go bowling or we go to the DIA, which is the Detroit Institute of Art museum here in Michigan. We go to restaurants, we go to the movies. I mean, and they look forward to it. So and that's kind of where I started. That's more was my big focus. There's a big isolation with these people. And, there doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be really extensive. It can be as simple as, hey, let's just go to lunch with a couple of girls. And we really work hard on doing that. And like I said, we have a lot of pop-ups that come up where we do that. They're one time, hey, we're all going to the movies. Hey, we're all going to, out of state to go to this museum. Would you like to go? And that has been really powerful.
I just, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself. I love the model that you've created. This is so desperately needed,
It
so
is.
important. Have you thought about expanding your reach beyond the Michigan area? Do you serve people
Yeah.
from other states? Because I would love to see something like what you're doing everywhere because it's
Gilda, I would
so needed.
love to. I would love to. And that's why I love doing um, events like this because I keep thinking someone's going to hear me and say, we want you to do it here. I will create it anywhere because it does need to happen. We've had several people move from other states to be near us, which is such a responsibility, right? We had one person literally move from India to be in our program. And now this young lady, and I forgot to mention this, those apartments I spoke about across the street, we have 5 people living there now. And she's one of them. And my gosh, to be able to say that someone moved from India because of your programs. And I see her walking down the street. I see her going to Starbucks coffee. She comes to our programs in the evening. We got her a job. It just, I know how to create it. It takes someone to listen that says, well, I can do the resource part. I can help you with the money piece. And that's the person that helped me originally. That's how it happened. And now this has just grown. So if anyone's listening and has that piece of it, I will be the other piece.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Is there anything we haven't touched on at this point, Rochelle, that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I've got 5 people living in those apartments across the street, but my goal, the reason why I named it Living and Learning is because of the housing piece. That is the most important piece. Every parent that has a child with some type of special need goes to bed at night thinking, what is going to happen when I die? And that is what drove me. Um, so please, also, I want to put in if you ever need to email me or find me, I'm at livingandlearningcenter.org. That is the name of my website. So I wanted to make sure I said that real quick. But that is what I'm focusing on. I've got a big mortgage I have to pay off, and I'm cognizant of it. But my view is constantly on that next piece, the next piece of housing. And I've got many ideas. There's apartments for sale down the street. We've got property across the street I could build there. But that is my next big focus is independent living. So if anyone else is interested in that, which there will be, um, please feel free to email me anytime and I can fill you in on where we are on that.
Well, Rochelle, I wish you all the best and so much luck with what you're doing. As I said, it's impressive, it's wonderful, and it's so desperately needed. Please keep doing what you're doing. Keep going, and thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you, Gilda, because it's being on shows like this that help me get the word out. And someone's going to be listening and they're going to say, we want to move forward too. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on this. And again, my email is rvartanian at llecmi.org. And Vartania is spelled Vartanian. So that's my email. And we're at livingandlearningcenter.org.
Thanks, Rachelle.
Thank you, Gilda.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. We'd appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube at ARP Social, where you'll find bonus content, and be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get up-to-date notifications about the latest news and episodes. If you would like more information on anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. Be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending a part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.